I'll now sign a document pledging the federal government's total support of LA in hosting the 2028 Olympics. How exciting is that? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to thank the LA 2028 Executive Chairperson, Casey Wasserman, and Casey, really fantastic job right from the beginning. You were there right at the beginning. From the day I took office, I've done everything in my power to make sure that LA achieved the winning bid. I hope you remember me in 2028. Okay, do you promise, Casey? You remember me. At least give me a seat, okay?
Guaranteed.
Casey, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, Mr. President. Well, I want to thank you for formalizing the commitment of the federal government. Your leadership from the beginning has been instrumental in us achieving this goal of bringing the Games back to the United States. And our goal is to create a safe, successful, and secure Olympic Games, and that's not possible without the support you and the federal government have provided us. I promise you we'll remember you in 2028, to say the least, because it wouldn't have happened without you.
Thanks to the work of President Trump, planning and preparations are already underway to execute the event with flawless precision. So rest assured that the department will be engaged on every front. I really do mean that, from cybersecurity to counterterrorism to immigration, protection of international and national leaders, economic security, aviation security, and much, much more.
How do we clean up LA's homeless situation before these games, and what do you see as the federal government's role?
Well, we had no role, but we're really taking a role in it. I see it. I see what's happening to LA. I see what's happening to San Francisco. I see what's happening to some great cities. And I've said to my people, whether they like it or not, we're going to have to do something. So we're right now working in LA. They're also contacting San Francisco. They have to clean it up. And if they can't do it themselves, we're going to do it. The federal government's going to take it over. We're going to do it. Everybody's going to be working on it very hard. We're going to, we're starting working now. It's a long time. It's 8 years, but we're really starting right now. You need the support of the federal government to make it really work. And we have it. It's going to be a fantastic Olympics. Thank you all very much. Very excited.
Mr. President,
Whoa, there we are.
Well, those are our faces. Welcome, everybody, to our very exciting and important and special town hall. I'm Anne. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Albert, or I can introduce you.
No, that's fine. I mean, do you want to do a little bit more? I mean, I'll set the pace. Okay, so I'm Albert Corrado. I'm an organizer with NOlympics LA and also People's City Council here in Los Angeles. I never went to college, so I just want to throw that out there before we get this started. And do you want to kind of give an intro to yourself and tell us what we're here to do tonight? What's the sort of basis of this town hall that we've decided to put on tonight?
Yeah, for sure. So, as the title would suggest, and I should back up and say too, again, I'm Anne. I'm also an organizer with NOlympics, also a member of the Los Angeles Tenants Union and DSALA. And we are here because, the foundation of our campaign has always been rooted in police and prison abolition. That's one of the main reasons we're fighting the Olympics, because we believe that a city that hosts the Olympics is incompatible with a city where we are working to abolish, our carceral system. And we saw in the wake of the movement for Black Lives and uprising, earlier this year, a lot of the folks who were involved with the Olympics, along with many other folks, coming out and saying that they support Black Lives Matter, even in some cases saying that they want to defund the police or abolish the police, but also supporting the Olympics. And we want to demonstrate why these two things essentially don't fit together. And we have two really amazing speakers here who we'll introduce in a moment. But first, I should probably say, just as a brief introduction, what NOlympics is. We are a coalition of officially, I think, somewhere between 25 and 30 groups, predominantly in California, and predominantly within the county of Los Angeles. And we also work with a number of other groups really closely in Los Angeles and California and around the world. And we explicitly formed again because we believe that any Olympics are going to exacerbate the crises that we currently face in our cities around racist, militarized policing, around displacement and social cleansing. And a lot of the conversation that we were hearing around the Olympics initially was pretty strictly confined to the budget, and that's not what we want to talk about. So, Albert, do you want to give folks a little bit of a heads up about kind of how we're going to run this?
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I'm a proud, NOlympian. So I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about this. Especially, we've got some great guests that I can't wait to get into. But as far as for the people watching at home, I know we got a pretty packed house tonight. If you guys want to introduce yourselves in the chat, let us know where you're watching from. If you're in LA or wherever you might be watching from, we always love to know where people are watching from, and especially with the Olympics, this is a global thing. A lot of cities are going to be have been affected by the Olympics and are possible to be affected by them. So we won't have. Oh, so by the way, I want to actually tease. There is going to be a big announcement at the end of this meeting, so stick around. We're going to have a little bit of fun after this meeting. So yeah, can't wait to announce that. And then there won't be a Q&A during this meeting. We're going to have a separate meeting next week on the 28th at 7 p.m., same time as today. Wherever you want to bring questions and we can talk about, go into the nitty gritty of all the stuff that you're going to hear about tonight. So, I guess without further ado, we want to introduce our guest. And who's first up tonight?
So, I guess it's hard to not introduce them both at once, but basically, and don't want to spend too long, because my best guess is if you're here tonight, if you're tuning into this conversation, it's probably specifically of these two speakers that we have. So Dr. Melina Abdullah, who's a professor at Cal State and one of the founders of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. We also have Hamid from Stop LAPD Spying, which is a coalition of groups dedicated to essentially mapping and stopping the vast infrastructure of police surveillance in Los Angeles. And we would not be having the kinds of conversations at the level that we are about defunding the police, about the role that police play in our lives, what we mean when we talk about policing, if it wasn't for these two incredible leaders. So incredibly, I'm trying really hard not to swear because I don't know who's on, but I think there are a lot of people watching. But I'm so incredibly grateful to be having this conversation with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, we love both of you a lot.
Thank you, and we love you. Thank you for having us. I'm not quite sure where you want me to lead in, other than we've also worked very closely together. Hamid's actually been in this work a lot longer and more fully than I have. Black Lives Matter was born here in Los Angeles July 13th, 2013. And so we've been on the ground doing work for about 7 years and some change. I don't even know how long Hamid's been doing this work, but it's been great working in solidarity with Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. There's very few organizations that Black Lives Matter is intimately tied with, and Stop LAPD Spying Coalition is one of them. We've also, been very glad to be in partnership with NOlympics and definitely see the overlap between what we're talking about, right? So the idea of bringing in more policing to maintain safety, we know that means safety for some at the expense of all the rest of us, right? Safety for white affluent communities, for folks who want to roll into our city. And it means less resources and also more repression for Black folks, for brown folks, for unhoused folks, for poor folks. And so this is work that we have to focus on. We have to remember, you showed that clip of Donald Trump, that Donald Trump represents one form of white supremacy, one form of oppression. He represents, violent and very apparent white supremacy. But one of the things I say often is that Eric Garcetti, on the other hand, represents liberal white supremacy. And liberal white supremacy can be just as bad, right? It might not use the same rhetoric, but it's less easy to identify, and it has very serious consequences, right? It's under liberal white supremacy that we have a city where 54% of the general fund goes to policing, that we have a city where LAPD has 734 claims of racial bias in a single year. It investigates itself and then finds itself that every single one of those claims is unfounded, right? It's a city where, and we're very fortunate to be in community with Albert Corrado, but I'm not excited about the way in which we came to know each other and work together. We live in a city that stole the life of Melly Corrado and then attempted to blame someone else, right? Where LAPD is excused for the theft of life, of the theft of Melly's life as they went into that Trader Joe's and stole Melly's life. And so, liberal white supremacy is not the answer to violent and blatant white supremacy. The answer to violent, blatant white supremacy and to liberal white supremacy is all of us organizing ourselves together and working towards a really much more fundamentally transformative view of the world, engaging our radical imaginations and fundamentally reimagining public safety and grounding it in the building of community and the resourcing of community instead of funding a violent, oppressive, murderous policing system.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of, Eric Garcetti and kind of what he represents in the context of all of this, and speaking of some, not the founding, but earlier days of BLM, we pulled up some tweets from 2016, kind of talking about, I don't know if, I always have a really hard time telling on Skype if I'm frozen or not. So I don't know if I just froze. You're good. Okay, cool. But yeah, maybe if we can pull up one of those tweets and talk a little bit about kind of how NOlympics and BLM initially connected. And I should say too that, the way that NOlympics was founded is a lot of us, we met in the Housing and Homelessness Committee of the SALA in 2017, but a lot of us were already part of other groups and working with other groups where people were talking about the Olympics and the harm that they were going to cause if they came in terms of policing, in terms of displacement. And BLM was actually one of the very first groups to be really public about that. So I don't know if this is, and I guess for some background context too, this was tweeted during the incredible occupation of City Hall that BLM led. And Eric Garcetti, BLM was staging this massive, incredibly well-organized occupation at City Hall and demanding that Chief Beck be fired, among other things. And where was Eric Garcetti? He was partying in Rio for the 2016 Olympics that destroyed Rio. So I don't know if Melina, if you want to take a trip down memory lane and just maybe we can all reflect for a minute on where is Eric Garcetti in all of this?
I remember tweeting this tweet because the reason we had to come and decolonize City Hall is because Riddell Jones was a 4'10" mother of two who was accused of stealing $80 from a pharmacy. She was hunted down by LAPD and shot in the back. And the LA Police Commission, which is appointed by Eric Garcetti, found that murder in policy. And so once we got that ruling, we marched over to City Hall. Several of us were brutalized inside City Hall. We have to remember that these are our buildings that we pay for, right? They decided to shut down City Hall because they saw we were coming, right? Several of us were brutalized. I was detained along with a couple of my students, and then finally released. And then we said, okay, well, now we're not going anywhere. So we didn't go anywhere for 54 days. For 54 days, we camped out 24/7 in front of City Hall. And we were demanding that Eric Garcetti answer to us. As we were making this demand, as his constituents, this fool was in Rio partying it up. This fool was in Rio rubbing elbows. He was in Rio more days than he was in Los Angeles. And so I wanted to remind folks, because that second tweet that you showed, I remember we were playing this game because that's what you do when you're like camped out 24/7, right? You come up with all kinds of crazy stuff, right? We started playing this game, Where in the World is Eric Garcetti? And whoever could, like, you know, where's Waldo? It was like, where's Waldo, right? Whoever could find him, we were giving out prizes, right? For Where in the World is Eric Garcetti? And Eric Garcetti was in Rio, rubbing elbows and watching the Olympics. I don't consider that work. Watching sporting events is not work, right? That is indulgence. That is something that the family of Riddell Jones couldn't do. That is something that those of us who wanted to stand up in her name couldn't do, because we felt like there were much more serious issues to consider than watching sporting events. And as he was doing it, he was jockeying for LA's position and trying to get the Olympics to come to LA. So he was more concerned about the Olympics coming to LA. And y'all know better than me, so you guys talk more about this, right? Which doesn't actually bring revenue to the parts of the city that need it, which just profiles, in my view, what he was trying to do is profile himself. Because remember, Eric Garcetti thought he was going to run for president, right? So he was trying to situate himself in such a way where he would have a national profile so that he would be a viable candidate. That didn't happen, thank God, but he's still trying to situate himself. He's still thinking about his own personal ambitions at the expense of the community that he's still supposed to be representing. I know he has an eye on a cabinet position under the Biden campaign. And so as a political scientist, my PhD is in political science. The first thing that they teach you is to never make a prediction. But I'm actually not really a political scientist as my definition of myself, right? I'm really an organizer, an activist, a Pan-Africanist. So I'll tell you this, mark my words, this fool, if Biden wins, is going into the cabinet. And so he doesn't really care what happens to Angelenos. He still sees himself as a future president of the United States and is trying to make sure that that path is clear. So he is willing to sacrifice Black folks and brown folks and unhoused folks and poor folks in Los Angeles for his own personal ambition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that was remarkable to me about the way that he sort of positioned this Olympic bid is Eric Garcetti has actually bragged on multiple occasions that the first thing he did in office after assuming the role of mayor was to write to the Olympic Committee, and I believe also to Joe Biden, asking them to make Los Angeles the candidate city for 2024, which in a city that, you know, leads in police murders, has the worst homelessness crisis and housing crisis, sits on the edge of so many ecological disasters, like that would be the first action that he takes, and that's something that he would brag about. And another connection he has to the Olympics is he and Casey Wasserman, who is the chair of the LA 28 committee, like to refer to themselves as the 84 boys. And they like to talk a lot about this cute story that they have about both being at the 84 games. And we'll talk a little bit more later, kind of who exactly their families are, but they both come from these kind of dynastic, wealthy, powerful LA families. And a big thing that they sold the Olympic bid on were these memories that they had of 1984. But if you talk to a lot of communities in LA, particularly Black and brown communities, people don't have really fond memories of that period in the 80s and early 90s of what was happening. And so we wanted to kind of shift gears for a little bit and talk about what was happening in LA 84 around policing in particular?
Do you want me to hop in here, Ann?
Oh yeah, Albert. If you
Yeah,
want
no
to
worries.
pick
No,
up
I
from
just
there.
wanted to kind of, obviously 84 is one of the most famous Olympics, obviously in LA. It's talked about a lot. For a long time, it was talked about in a way of like being a huge success and making money and all these sort of things. And I think in the last few years, I think due to a lot of our work, people have started to kind of actually look at it with a critical eye, and even going so far as to say that, well, 84, it wasn't super great, but the Olympics as a whole is awesome. And so I kind of wanted to ask Hamid, if you can talk about 84 and sort of the effects it had on hyper-militarizing the LAPD, some of the homeless and gang sweeps that happened, and the new battering rams and sort of the Operation Hammer and the crash unit. And then if you want to maybe talk a little bit about 92 and how 84 kind of set the stage for what happened with the uprising in 92.
Sure. Can you all hear me okay?
You sound great.
Terrific. Well, thank you. And first of all, just want to honor my sister, my comrade, my dear friend, Melina. Happy to be sharing space with everyone here. My apologies, my camera is kind of messed up, so I guess people can see me live there. But I think first of all, building on even looking at the video that you all started this conversation with, that after Trump signs those documents, the conversation immediately goes into security. The conversation goes into comments about transportation security, this security, that security. So in a sense, we have to look at it that more than a sporting event, even if you want to call it, because I would even argue that the Olympics are an every 4-year reminder and celebration of white supremacy as well. The way the Olympics are framed, the way the Olympics, the history of the Olympics, how the Olympics are linked to the Greek civilization, the Western civilization, and going back to Athens and everything else. There's a very clear, just line. There's a very clear trajectory to that. So every 4 year, the world gets caught up as a reminder that who owns the world, who controls the world, and how even something as very fundamental. And I want to make a distinction about sport and the celebration of the body, the celebration of our spirit, the celebration of just exercising our physical spirit. So I think that's separate from what the Olympics represent. The Olympics represent the commodification of the body, the monetization of the body. So I think those distinctions from the get-go have to be made as well. But referring specifically to 1984, I think we have to go back to the first Olympic as well in 1932 that happened in Los Angeles, which was at a time that how even back then the stage was being set, even back then. And then we get into 1936 in Berlin and on and on and on. So 1984 was a key time period as well, because what we saw was in the aftermath of the Watts uprising, you saw the McCone Commission, and as a result, the McCone Commission was established, and then how land was also being demarcated as well, and where USC fits into the whole thing, and where USC, as I believe, the second largest owner in the city of Los Angeles, plays a key role as well. So the whole issue of eminent domain, the whole issue of reclaiming land was already the land was being repurposed. So we were already looking at this earliest introduction of gang databases. This is when in the early 80s. And then we see this Olympics coming in and a massive infusion and the expansion of the national security police state. We saw a massive infusion of increase in helicopter fleet. We saw a massive infusion of military-style vehicles, armored cars, battering rams. We saw post 1970s that how these raids were already, Daryl Gates was already very much in the mix. And 1984 Olympics became pretty much a pivotal moment in what we see now of massive removal of people. That we saw banishment of people, we saw massive removal of people, we saw a clear, almost like under the guise of cleaning out, that how particularly young black and brown individuals, young men and women were being impacted, how massive sweeps were going on, how arrests in the thousands were taking place as well. But I think we also have to look at it that what happens after 1984 Olympics as well. We see by 1986 or so, gang injunctions becoming a permanent piece in our lives. We see Operation Hammer being launched in 1987. We see the expansion of the crash unit, and then we go into, which later turned out to be the whole Rampart scandal as well. So the Olympics were setting the stage for 1992. I mean, as we talk about it, because obviously the memories, the impact, the trauma was still very fresh in the community. How communities were being removed en masse, how homelessness had expanded, how in a very methodical way the economic conditions, especially in South Central Los Angeles in the 60s and 70s, had been completely gutted. How we saw the whole massive outsourcing, massive unemployment we see in the 80s. So the Olympics represent a time period where we also saw massive infusion of crack cocaine. We also saw the buildup towards the 1992 crime bill as well, 1994 crime bill as well. So I think when at least for Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, when we look at the Olympics, especially in 1984, a lot of elements and tactical operation of the national security police state that we see today can be clearly linked to 1984, can be clearly linked to where broken windows policing was being introduced, where Bratton was out in Boston and then moving into New York. So I want to stop there, but really kind of just almost cautioning us that the now with the 1033 program, Department of Defense, we're going to see again an expansion of a lot of military style munitions and weaponry and surveillance equipment. And this, interestingly, the photo that you see that I'm in, this was a 2011, early 2012 action outside the Fusion Center, which is a central spy center in Los Angeles. This is in Norwalk, which is a central warehousing of all the information gathering, storing, and sharing. So this Fusion Center is going to play a pivotal role in how everybody's information is being gathered and everybody's information is being shared. So these type of activities are very much going to be very much in place. So we need to get ready for that.
Yeah, it's been the 84 legacy has really has played such a pivotal role in these conversations, and something that's been really incredible to witness in the last 6 to 9 months. So when we first started, they leaned very heavily into 84, and when we would bring these things up around policing, their response, and by they I mean Garcetti and Casey Wasserman and the Olympic Committee and boosters, would say, "What are you talking about? LA 84 was great. We all had a great time. Casey Wasserman ran the torch relay with O.J. Simpson. It was fantastic. We all loved it. Ronald Reagan spoke." And in the last, with less than a year probably, they've kind of shifted into saying, okay, we can't pretend 84 wasn't an unmitigated disaster in terms of ushering in this new era of militarized policing and surveillance and particularly incredibly racist, violent policing, banishment. But instead, what they're sort of pivoting to is kind of this reform angle of saying, it's not going to happen this time. It's just things are different. And the first thing I guess I want to call attention to is that the people are essentially still the same people. It's basically just the redux of the same cast of characters, right? So Eric Garcetti, the reason that he was so present in the 84 games is because his dad is Gil Garcetti, who was the DA. So essentially the most powerful cop in LA at the time. Casey Wasserman, who's the chair of the LA 28 committee, his grandfather is Lou Wasserman, who was on the 84 Olympic committee. His wife's grandfather is Paul Zifrin, who was also on the 84 committee. There's a lot of talk about, well, back in 84, we had Daryl Gates and we don't have Daryl Gates now. But instead we have Michael Moore, who is a disciple of Daryl Gates. And we found out through a public record request, which if we could pull this up now, that Steve Soboroff from the Police Commission kind of, acknowledged our concerns recently. And if we're pulling it up, I'll wait until it's up on screen. And basically saying, the questions are valid, but he says, but it's a different LAPD than 1984. So I guess, Albert, what do you make of this email?
I mean, like I said, earlier, I think that finally the work that we've been doing, and obviously I don't take credit for all of it because I joined the NOlympics a little later, but the work and the messaging is working because now they have to go and say, all right, you're right, we really messed up and we know this wasn't great and it's a different force. And when I hear that, obviously, and as Melina said, we know each other because, my sister was murdered by the LAPD. I think, I think it's a different force. I mean, Melina, do you think it's a different force than 84? And if so, in what ways is it different from 84 to what we're seeing now and what we could possibly see in the run-up to the 2028 Olympics?
Do I think the LAPD is a different force?
Than in 84?
So it's a different force, but not in a positive way, right? I think that we need to recognize that the system of policing in this country hails from slave catching, that the system of policing in this country is an extension of chattel slavery. It's a vestige of chattel slavery. And it tries to maintain itself and grow rather than shrink. And so I think that what's happened since 84 is the system of policing has evolved. The system of policing has tentacles that reach out, that have different spaces that it also occupies, that have different institutions or seemingly different institutions and systems that feed it and legitimize it. So when we talk about, when we quote people like Steve Soboroff, or we look at an LA Police Commission, it becomes this veneer that is an attempt to legitimize a system of policing that is deliberately and intentionally designed to produce the outcomes that it does, including the murder of Melly Corrado, including the blaming of, and I appreciate the way that you articulated this at her anniversary, Albert, including the blaming of a Black man, a Black suspect, for her death, right? When it was LAPD that ran up in that Trader Joe's and stole her life, right? So the system of policing, LAPD, is an evolved form of what it was in 84. It gobbles up more dollars. It's in many ways much more advanced in terms of its technology. It legitimizes itself, and it really tries to kind of build support through both institutions and uses those institutions to make community members think that somehow we need it, right? To block us from our imaginings. And I think Hamid is probably the best person equipped on this entire earth to talk about the ways in which LAPD has evolved since 1984. Wow, that I just said the whole number 1984 and I'm going 1984. But I mean, I also don't believe that's coincidental, right? Evolved since 1984 to be what it is now, which he talks about. What do you call it? A web? What is it that you call it, Hamid, when you show the, so Hamid is great in terms of technology, and Hamid also realizes we can't always depend on technology. So Hamid walks around with folded up. He walks around with folded up sheets of paper. What's that paper called?
Architectural surveillance and stalker state and all of that stuff.
Surveillance. So you'll ask Hamid, well, how does this work? And he'll bust out this. I'm sorry.
player leave his room.
He'll bust out. Can you turn the whole thing off? He'll bust out with this sheet of poster board or whatever that is, butcher paper, out of his like bag and like show you the entire web of surveillance. So Hamid's probably the best equipped, not probably, the absolute best person to talk about what's happened since '84 and kind of really this expansion and evolution of LAPD.
And I think just building on thank you, Melina. Building on Melina's point, I think when we think about and we talk about how policing has changed or not, I think we have to be cognitive of the fact that the police is constantly experimenting. It is constantly so change and evolution is very much inherent in how policing operates because they are constantly experimenting on bodies. Because if we agree that the purpose of policing is the intent to cause harm, and on many communities, and it's not about public safety, then I think that how that harm is caused, how that harm is unleashed, is something that we need to be looking at. What has happened since 1984, that LAPD has been very much on the forefront of high-tech policing, of developing this whole process of robocops, of intelligence gathering, of the information sharing environment, of a massive build-up of an architecture of surveillance. And here we also need to bring in that when we talk about the Olympics, it's not just the LAPD that we are going to be looking at. These are all multi-agency task forces. When you look at the Sheriff's Department, I mean, just another violent organization. There's this morbid competition between the LA Sheriff's Department and the LA Police Department and who murders the most in the country, because for the last 11 years, they're either first or second. That's how they're kind of changing places. So I think you'll have the sheriffs in the mix. You'll have the FBI in the mix. You'll have the U.S. Attorney in the mix. You'll have Department of Homeland Security. Now we have a Department of Homeland Security, which we didn't have at the time in 1984 either. So what we are seeing is this sort of, just this multi-agency, federal, local, regional task forces and also partnerships that are going to be very much present. Secondly, I think we also have to consider that how virtual boundaries are going to be set up, because now as a result of information sharing, like how people would be blocked and stopped from area, what would be the boundaries, what would be the curfew, almost like type conditions where information sharing would lead to targeting of people and basically just in a sense halting them where they are. So these are all not something that we are just pulling out of a hat. This is actual training that the LAPD did when Garcetti was at Rio Olympics. LAPD, a whole team of LAPD had gone to Rio. A whole team of LAPD and the Israeli Defense Forces were present in Rio, that how to create security zones. They were also there when Rio World Cup was going to happen as well. So I think when the World Cup soccer happens in LA, that's going to be another example to see that how these agencies are going to work. And I believe that's probably going to be happening in the next 2 or 3 years as well. So I think the evolution is a natural extension of what their intent is. The evolution is where how various types of surveillance equipment is being expanded. It's being experimented. What does it look like in this public-private partnership? So when you look at things, something as small as Ring technology, Nextdoor.com, all of these things we need to be very aware that how they are going to be deployed and how both those see something, say something, how the community informants are going to be active as well. So we have to really sit down and would love to do that with NOlympics, is to map out that what this infrastructure of this public-private partnership of the national security police state going to look like.
Yeah, and speaking of that, just wanted to jump for a second to the fact that, so the Olympics since 2002, since Salt Lake City have been designated a National Special Security Event, or NSSE, which we first learned about actually just by reading a report from the Legislative Analyst Office, which was looking at the initial budget proposal for 2024. And they were really just talking about the NSSE in terms of what the implications for the budget would be and kind of measuring it in terms of cost. But there were two sentences that jumped out at us and led to a lot more research on the NSSE, which were the Department of Homeland Security would manage coordination of all federal, state, and local agencies delivering security service. And in total, the US government would devote thousands of its personnel and potentially tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of support to a Los Angeles Games. That support would encompass years of planning and threat assessment aimed at keeping Los Angeles safe. So those two items about the Department of Homeland Security being in charge and the devotion of years of planning and money, and without the clarity about when does this start and what does it encompass and what does collaboration look like, we've been raising as concerns, since the beginning. The response again from Casey Wasserman, from Eric Garcetti, and the rest of them has just been essentially, don't worry about it. There's no reason to worry about the Department of Homeland Security overseeing the coordination of the sheriffs and the LAPD. That'll be fine. Why would you worry about that? So I know this is a leading question, but would love to hear from everyone here. Why should we be worrying now about all of those things? What does that implicate? And particularly, who is at risk because of that level of coordination?
By the way, I want to, just before either of you answer this, I want to also add something to add a little bit more to this. LAPD has basically confirmed that they're going to need 3,000 more officers in the run-up to the 2028 games. Right now, they have roughly, close to 10,000. So that's 13,000 police officers by 2028. So, again, just to kind of pile onto what Ann just said, that's what we are looking. The future could look like that. Having, Homeland Security and Border Patrol and ICE working alongside 13,000 LAPD officers.
And I think we actually have a clip of an LAPD officer talking about those plans. Just to be clear that those are not numbers that we're speculating on. This is coming from the LAPD. So maybe we can play that really quickly and then afterwards reflect on, what does it mean to have an expanded local police force that is, coordinating with all of these other, forces.
We don't have mass hiring real soon. The mayor got us 2028 Olympics. It is estimated that on a daily basis, 13,000 officers will be needed to man that. That's doing the regular jobs and the extra jobs of security for that.
So what do you make of all that?
I mean, the question that was initially asked is who's most at risk? And we know that more police means more abuse. It means more repression. It means more brutality. It means more killing of Black people at the hands of police. It means more criminalization of Black people. And so who's most at risk is absolutely Black people, absolutely poor people, absolutely the neighborhoods like the one in which I live, right? I live in the Crenshaw district, right? It means the creation of rules that are not actually laws, the misuse of law in order to justify criminalizing Black people. So we are absolutely the most at risk. And when you talk about putting 3,000 more officers on the streets, you're really talking about occupying Black communities, especially. Hamid will tell you that when we talk about data gathering, data collection, that it's Black people and Black women in particular that are most likely to be surveilled and kept in these databases. That we know that this isn't about keeping people safe, but it's about repressing the potential for organizing. It's about repressing the potential for resistance. It's about repressing our radical imaginations. And so 13,000 officers is a war. They're ramping up for a war against Black people. And, of course, what happens to Black people, Lani Guinier writes about this, that Black people are the miner's canary. Right. So whatever they're able to get away with in South Central Los Angeles, they're going to try next in Boyle Heights. And then they're going to try next in Echo Park. and then they're going to try next in Koreatown, and then they're going to try in white communities as well. And so it's really important that we understand that they're going to start by targeting and abusing and brutalizing and criminalizing and repressing and even killing Black people. But that's going to expand outward. And so we need to remember that what keeps communities safe, if we're talking about communities generally, right? What keeps communities safe, if we're talking about people, not profits, what keeps us safe is actually the expansion of resources, the diverting of dollars away from police. We should be cutting LAPD, not spending more on LAPD. And then I'll be quiet after I give this note. Before we went into this pandemic, LAPD had been proven to be one of the most corrupt law enforcement units in the country, right? LAPD had been proven to actually actively recruiting officers from white supremacist outlets like Breitbart, right? LAPD had been proven to target Black communities, pulling us over and engaging in acts of driving while Black, walking while Black, right? LAPD had been proven to criminalize Black people at rates that were far above our population share. And then LAPD was proven to have falsely entered Black people into gang databases, forever criminalizing them for acts that are not crimes. And just to kind of underscore what I mean by that, is they entered Black people into this Cal Gangs database. And as a result, Black people were coded as gang members, which, you know, when we think about gang injunctions and other tools that they use, it made Black people subject to a bunch of rules that are not crimes. So for instance, once we were identified as gang members, things like riding a bike, think about Dijon Kazee, right? Things like using a cell phone, think about everybody on the planet, right? Things like gathering with other known gang members, who could be anybody, including people in your family, right, were thought of as crimes and are coded as crimes. And then just over and over and over again, Black people especially were fed to the system of mass incarceration. And so I want to lift that up, because we need to think about what it means to be spending more, providing more officers into our communities, creating 3,000 new cop jobs. What that means, there's no other industry on earth who could be as proven to be as corrupt as LAPD and then given money to expand itself.
And I think there's another side to this story as well, that why and what would that expansion serve after the Olympics? Because this is not just for the 2-week period when the Olympics are going to be there. The heat is on already. I mean, you know, the whole veneer of pseudoscience, the whole use of this language of algorithms and analytics and artificial intelligence and machine learning and all of that. You know, we have been filing for for lots of public records as well, and kind of identifying. So, you know, when we are looking at the expansion of Metro, when we are looking at the development of Inglewood Stadium, when we are looking at these critical sites where developments are taking place, what we are also looking at this use of predictive policing and various types of methodologies that are deeming whole neighborhoods as sites of criminality. They are deeming whole communities as a way which would require more policing, which would require a partnership, which we have now emails between realtors, between sending emails to neighborhood prosecutors about certain properties, which are then deemed as nuisance properties, and abatements are being set up. So what does that do? What that does is that removes people en masse. That these nuisance abatements through CNAP program are being levied on these places as well. So I think before we get to 2028, we need to go back about almost like 10 years ourselves as well, that what has been the whole trajectory of where we are now, where this veneer of science and this pseudoscience is being used, where communities are being digitally quarantined through the use of these policing tactics. So when you look at development, when you look at so we see this whole sort of this style of settler colonialism very much in play. I mean, how this juxtaposition of removal of people and the gentrification and development is going on. So the bringing in extra 3,000 cops, it's not just going to be for the 2-week period. It's going to be a continuation forever to protect these new sort of more properties that are being set up, new neighborhoods that are being developed, and in a way that how then the people who are being removed will have to be contained and controlled and quarantined at different locations as well. So that's, we need to be thinking ahead as to where this is going with.
Yeah, and Casey Wasserman, who is a president of the LA 28 Foundation, and he basically said, someone asked him, well, what about tickets to the Olympics? How's that going to work? And he said, your face will be your ticket. So the 2028 Olympics is already being used as a pretext for expanding facial recognition technology. And when obviously when you hear that, that's something that is worrisome because, again, it's a 2-week thing that happens. They expand the police force. They expand facial recognition technology. But obviously that doesn't go away when the Olympics leave town. And so that's something that we are going to have to deal with as time goes on if the Olympics are to come here. And honestly, that to me is very scary. And I just wanted to see if you had anything to say on that, Hamid, just to kind of wrap that up.
Absolutely. But I think it's also where our fight is, because we're not waiting until 2028. I mean, we've been fighting them since 1998, if you will. So moving on. So it's been like almost a 30-year battle as well. But absolutely. So I think we need to be, and that's what Melina was referring to earlier. Us pulling out these butcher papers, because that's the purpose why we map these things. That's the purpose why we identify, to inform ourselves, to educate each other as to what the impact is, not right now, not yesterday, but in the future. So stay tuned. I mean, there's going to be a big fight coming up around facial recognition, just in the next few weeks, and we will need everybody to be out in the street. We will need everybody to mobilize, where we're not just it's not about reforming, but it's about completely abolishing and banning these technologies that continue to criminalize us.
Yeah, I think that's a great note to sort of take us into, the conclusion of this, which is really, I think, about what our fight is, and specifically across the board. I know this is a conversation a lot of us have had to have a lot more in the last few months, probably. But why abolition and not reform? Why do we not think that these are institutions that are capable of reforming, essentially, whether it's the LAPD or the Olympic machine, which is tied into the LAPD? What does our fight look like towards abolition, and why aren't we waiting?
Yeah, I think maybe if I can address that real quickly. I mean, a couple things. One is that inherently what reform does is continues to legitimize an existing system. Secondly, what reform does is it expands the bureaucracy that is already in existence to manage under the guise of transparency and this whole bogus language of accountability and transparency and this, that, and the other. So that's why for us, and this is something that BLM and Stop LAPD Spying Coalition have been absolutely adamant, that we will fight back against any proposal that proposes reform of this system, particularly the National Security Police State, because you can't. So I think the key here is that surveillance is central, because this is where high-tech policing is coming into play. So how do we build our fight? How do we educate each other? How do we inform each other? And it's not just only about the old saying about a feedback loop, that it's going to be a previous just racist data, so it's going to give out racist data. No, it's deeply, deeply insidious. the language of collective efficacy is being used, that who and where and who should be present. And in that, we even found out these documents which have established through these very high-tech policing programs that who is a threat to the existing system, and which Melina referred to earlier. This one document they had 17 layers of who should be who brings an efficiency, a collective efficacy to a neighborhood. They were mostly white men with jobs who were property owners, and at the lowest rung of the ladder, and the last number 17 was, and they identify that as a single black mother between the ages of 28 and 37 who is a tenant that is considered a threat to the well-being of the neighborhood. So now these are official documentations that are incorporated into predictive policing and other forms of policing as well. So then who's going to be the target? So who ultimately is going to be harassed? Who ultimately is going to be intimidated? Whose children are going to be harassed? Whose children are going to be then going into these databases and all of that? So I think that's where we need to mobilize, we need to come together, and I think that's where once the election is over, that's where the plans are, that how do we come back and start, building that power that we have about abolishing these systems of mass surveillance.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is when, we've heard through the grapevine that Casey Wasserman has been promising some of the LA 28 creators, the brand ambassadors who have raised concerns about policing, that they're going to add the 3,000 officers, but they're also going to establish new youth councils and have neighborhood conversations, so it's all fine. So what you're saying is that we probably shouldn't trust that.
Right.
So I just want to underscore what abolition means, right? So you asked about abolition, right? So there's a bunch of people watching, and I would say for a lot of us, we love sports, right? We love competitive sports. We love, watching Jesse Owens, right? Watching old footage of Jesse Owens. We love John Carlos and Tommy Smith. We love those moments. We love FloJo, right? We love all of that, right? And abolitionism doesn't mean saying we can't be fans, right? That we can't love the idea of sport, the idea of, for Black people in particular, sports are hugely important, right? Sports is a pushback. It's the front door. It's the front door. Okay. Sports are hugely important. Sorry about that. Sports are hugely important because it's one of the spaces that, white supremacy and chattel slavery was unable to strip Black people of our excellence, right? And so they're going, why are you, talking bad about the Olympics? I think that when we talk about abolitionism, it's important to remember that we're not talking about abolishing sport, abolishing the celebration of the body, right, as really kind of a divine tool, right? That's not what we're talking about. Abolition, though, really looks at who these systems are being used for, ending the oppressive nature of those systems, and reimagining something different. And I think that's a lot of conversation that's happening across sport, right? When you talk about team owners demanding certain things of their athletes, right? When you talk about the way in which college athletes are pimped out for universities, right? And, their use of their body doesn't belong to them, but belongs to an institution, right? I think that's really what we're talking about. When we talk about no Olympics, it doesn't mean that we want to kind of abolish sport. It means that we want to liberate sport, right? It means that we don't want sport to be used as a pretext for the oppression and repression of Black people, of Indigenous people, of other people of color, of poor people. We don't want it to be used as a tool of gentrification and over policing. And so it means toppling a system that does that and fundamentally reimagining what sport can mean.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I think we're probably ready to wrap up. So we want to obviously thank you both for being here, but also want to ask like how can people get involved? Melina, I know this obviously BLM does a great many things, including the weekly Wednesday action, if you want to talk about that. And then Hamid, if you want to come in after and just tell people how they can get involved in this incredible work in our, if our goal is to defund and abolish the police, how do we go about doing that? How do people get plugged in with both of you?
Sure. So the work of abolition through Black Lives Matter has many prongs, and we want everybody to plug in. So every single Wednesday, we are in front of Jackie Lacey's office, in front of the Hall of Injustice, 211 West Temple, beginning at 3:00. We have one more Wednesday until the election. So please join us. It's one of the reasons I was rushing tonight, is I was rushing in from an incredible action where we first did a press conference demanding accountability from the LA County Sheriff, which is a whole nother terrible ass, corrupt ass system, right, that continues to steal the lives of our people alongside LAPD. And if you look at the most murderous law enforcement units in the country, it goes back and forth between LAPD and LA County Sheriff's Department, right? And so, we started with that, demanding an independent investigation of the LA County Sheriff's Department. We had a rally in front of Jackie Lacey's office, claiming and proclaiming that Jackie Lacey must go, Jackie Lacey will go. Thank you for putting that up. She is the district attorney who has signed off on the murders of 622 people at the hands of police in Los Angeles County, refusing to prosecute police who kill our people. And so we have an opportunity. We've been chanting this for 3 years. It wasn't tied to an election, but now we're in the midst of an election cycle. So we, after we closed that rally, we marched to a ballot drop box, the Little Tokyo library ballot drop box, and a bunch of people voted for propositions like Measure J and like Prop 16 and Prop 17, right? We voted yes on those things. And then we closed out. Every Wednesday we are there. So we want to challenge everybody on the last Wednesday before the election, a week from today, to meet us at 211 West Temple at 3 p.m. And then every Tuesday we do a virtual action, making sure that we engage the LA Police Commission, which is a rubber stamp body that consistently signs off on the murders of our people and a system of corruption within this city. And so we ask people to join us on Tuesdays at 9:30. You can plug into all of our work at blmla.org, blmla.org, or follow us on social media. On Instagram, it's BLM Los Angeles, and on Twitter, it's BLMLA. And a lot of this work we do in partnership with Stop LAPD Spying. We have a coalition called LAPC Fails, which 3 of the 4 of us, and Ann, I don't know, maybe you're in it too, are all a part of. And so Tuesdays we get to talk a lot of crap. I'm twitching because I usually cuss, so I'm sorry that if one slipped out, I'm sorry about that. But usually we talk a lot of crap. Yeah, LAPC Fails. That's Steve Soberoff's bald head. Behind that tag, right? And so every Tuesday we're together virtually and also online doing that work. Oh, let me announce one more quick thing, can I?
Of course, yes, please.
We are doing a Get Out the Vote rally on Sunday. Now, I know some people are going, this is what I say, no oppressed people have ever voted themselves into freedom. That's absolutely true, and we still got to vote. right? We still got to vote all the way down the ballot. We still got to vote Jackie Lacey out of office. We still got to vote yes on Jay. We still got to vote yes on 16, which will do something to restore racial equity in the state of California. We still got to vote yes on 17 to restore voting rights for people who've served their time and are out on parole. We still got to make these kind of non-reformist reforms in order to soften the ground for the kind of transformation and revolution that we need. Thank you for putting the voter guide up. So on Sunday, we're going to be partnering with Centro CSO in El Sereno. So please meet us there Sunday morning, 10 a.m. When we're going to do a Get Out the Vote rally. And then we're going to follow that rally up with a Jackie Lacey Must Go neighborhood walk. So please join us. Diane Guerrero, the actress, will be there. So if that does it for you, then please come out. Diane is incredible. But so will many of the families be there whose loved ones have been stolen by police violence.
Lots of stuff going on, and just in addition to that, just keep an eye out for next Tuesday morning. We'll be sending some information about the police commission meeting as to how that is going to be taking place on the 27th. And for the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, join us every Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock. We have educational webinars every Tuesday on various issues. And since we used to meet in person in Skid Row, and because of COVID, we've been doing these online. And I think it's an opportunity for people to join us in doing a deep dive, to inform ourselves, to educate ourselves, to learn more about what are the systems of oppression, how they are breaking down day to day. It's not just about just about listening into our phones or tracking our license plate numbers. It's a tool of social control. It's completely reconfiguring that how our lives are being managed and controlled, and how do we then dismantle and abolish this system, this violent national security police state. So go to our website, www.stoplapdspying.org, stoplapdspying.org, or just go to any social media handle on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook at Stop LAPD Spying, and join the fight. Join the fight.
Incredible. I just want to take a minute to thank both of you for being here. We are big fans of what you do. Like I said in the beginning, we love you all, and thank you so much for being here. It's just incredible.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
And we appreciate y'all too. So the other thing about struggle is you meet some of the best people in the world, and so I'm grateful to be in community with all of you.
Likewise. Thank you. Thank you, Melina.
All right, folks.
Have a good night. Peace.
Whew. All right. Well, we just sat in with two of the best organizers in all of Los Angeles. How do you feel?
I always feel, after talking to Melina and or Hamid, hearing the two of them talk, like I need to, but my brain is just like every synapse is firing. I feel really ready to go. I could probably talk for another 2 hours or lie down and just kind of like sink in. I feel like something always just kind of switches on after hearing both of them. And I'm so grateful to have had that conversation. My dog is also very energized by the conversation.
Because I love to hear stuff like that. So I'm still here. I'm just going to tell y'all thank you so much. And get off this phone because we've been rolling since 5 a.m. and I'm starving and my kids are hungry too.
Eat.
Thank you, folks.
Okay. Love y'all.
Love you.
All right. So listen, to the people at home who watch this, obviously, thank you. We hope you found that informative. And if you didn't hate the Olympics, hopefully you now do. Hopefully that wasn't like making you like the Olympics. I hope not. But I wanted to just talk to we're going to have a meeting next
Wednesday.
Next Wednesday at 7 p.m. So same time as this one. We're going to discuss what we talked about tonight, get into the nitty gritty of the NOlympics movement, go into that sort of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun and, like, again, informative and all that sort of stuff. And, if you still have questions or maybe you're not fully convinced or whatever, come on by. We really love to talk to people because I feel like every time I talk to people about this who aren't like super in the know, I think they are very surprised as to just how many tentacles this Olympic machine has, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also we recognize that probably, and this happens in our working group meetings, this can happen in a lot of, any meeting. If you're maybe new to some of this or hearing some of this for the first time, you might have questions like, what's a fusion center? What's an NSSE? And so if you want, we can use that as a space too, to just maybe explain more and unpack some of what those terms are and what they mean, since I know we went through a lot of stuff very quickly.
Yeah, and okay, so I think, we're at the point where we can kind of talk a little bit about this special announcement we were going to make earlier in the okay, so we talked about Casey Wasserman, noted piece of shit. Can I curse? I'm sorry. Actually, sorry.
I think you can curse on Twitch. Maybe we'll find out if we get.
Okay, cool. Curse as much as I want. Awesome. Yeah. So he just sold his, he bought a house for $125 million. He was also on the Epstein flight logs. Complete and utter piece of shit. He sold his house for $68 million to David Geffen. So what we plan tonight is we're going to actually go and take a little visit to Casey Wasserman. A bunch of us are going to show up. We're going to meet at 1659 North Doheny Drive at 9:15. Here is the route. Here is where we're going to meet if you want to come join us. It's going to be fun. We're going to go and talk shit to this dude, as only NOlympians can. He's a very, very awful dude, and he's actually a huge, huge donor to the LAPD, has given like millions of dollars to the LAPD. So if you hate the LAPD as much as we do, come say what's up to one of their biggest boosters, Casey Wasserman, that piece of shit. Take a picture of that, save it in your heads. I will be out there along with a lot of great NOlympians. We're going to have a good time. We'll bring some sparkling water, something. We're going to have just the most wonderful time, and probably won't be there.
Yeah, Albert's right. I probably won't be there. I have to attend to some work, unfortunately, at home, but I will be sending all of my love and solidarity. Anyone who wants to give Casey Wasserman a piece of their mind, you are cordially invited to do so. Casey is someone who has a lot of power over our lives. He's not an elected official. We can't vote him out of office because we never chose him. He just happens to have been born into a really rich and powerful family, and now gets to make decisions like whether or not LA hosts the Olympics and how many police officers get hired. And in the middle of a pandemic where we're looking at probably hundreds of thousands of people losing their homes, facing homelessness, Sorry, Chris, did you say something? Oh, and sorry, and the meetup is at 9:15 p.m. Sorry, I just had a little bit of technical confusion. So 9:15 p.m., just, give Casey a little housewarming and let him know how we're feeling about the Olympics, how we're feeling about the police. This is someone who, for the most part, gets to hide. He locked down his social media accounts. Basically, that press conference that he gave in February 2020 with Donald Trump and Chad Wolf from the Department of Homeland Security was the first time he'd appeared publicly in a while. So, I think it's important for us to let some of these folks know who think they don't have to answer to the people whose lives they're affecting, that they do have to answer to us, that we're paying attention to what we're doing. And we know their names, we know their faces, we know where they're putting their money. And so let's tell them that.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, Anne's gonna be busy making a delicious focaccia tonight, but usually she's down. She's very down for the cause. I just want to say that. But yeah, come down. This dude loves Donald Trump. He loves Eric Garcetti. Fuck all of them. Listen, this is how we roll. We're gonna go to it. Let's all meet there. I'll give you an elbow, like a little elbow tap, if you come say hi. But yeah. let's go. I'm going to put some pants on, and we're going to get the fuck out of here. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I love NOlympics. I'm a proud NOlympian. I love all of you guys, and you're incredible. Thank you for doing the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for co-hosting with me. I felt a lot less nervous knowing that we were doing it together, and this was great. And I just love Melina and Hamid so much. I'm so grateful for all of you. And I'm debating about whether to embarrass all of the folks who put in just countless hours of behind the scenes work.
Yeah. Let's name some names. Christopher Roth from Ground Game LA. Love that guy. Who else is on here?
We got Eric Sheehan. We got Johnny Coleman, NOlympics co-chair partner in crime. Just so much. I know
Taylor Carr, I think, was on there probably. Yeah, Taylor
Carr. Yeah. Give us the other names of folks who aren't Michael Steinborn. Yeah, Eric Chevron, Gigi Dresch, like just so many people just working to get the word out, making various graphics, making sure that people know that this stuff is happening. I know that's one of the biggest questions that I've gotten kind of in the last few months, since a lot of folks have been mobilizing more, is like, how do I find out about stuff? And the way that you find out is the tireless work of people making sure that people know what's going on and find out. And just grateful for everyone who showed up, grateful for everyone who frantically was sending RSVP links and making sure that tech wasn't broken.
Shout out to Paulie Walnuts, Bobby Bacala.
Oh, Annie Powers. Yeah.
Annie Powers. Okay, that's a real one.
Yeah,
Shout
Annie
out
Powers
to
is a real one.
Corrado
She is
Soprano.
a real one.
She is a real one. Shout out to Ralph Cifaretto. Just all the homies who helped out.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's it, right? Anything else? Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Digital Earn. Come fuck with me.
I'm not on Twitter, and we should let everyone go so that folks can, also put on their pants, do whatever they need to do to grab some sparkling water. I'm from the East Coast originally. We bring a pineapple traditionally as a housewarming gift. So if you want to bring a pineapple, bring a pineapple. Although you should probably only do that for people you like. But
pineapple? Really? That's an East Coast thing?
Yeah, it's like a New England thing.
What a mess. That's just the whole mess down there, huh? All right, y'all. Later.
Bye, y'all.